I just watched a small sort of kind of documentary, or just a small, not a documentary, just a talk show where there were some people, the producers of the Russell Brand Dispatches film, that were just talking, and they brought up a really interesting question, which is that they said that they spent years talking with these people, these four witnesses of Russell Brand's inappropriate behavior, and trying to get them to bring these stories forwards. And that just like bothers me. So you want to take Russell Brand to prison for him to pay all these, to pay the penalty, and yet you, the producers of a some sort of documentary, are the ones that are sort of it sounded like they were almost pestering these people. They didn't want to come forward. They didn't want to have the shame of feeling like they've done inappropriate acts which weren't really their will. But that there is good and bad in everything, and I bet these people didn't want to lose their jobs because they obviously liked working where they were working, and maybe they saw some interesting things in Russell because of his kind of unique personality, or they obviously saw some good things in their job and in their thing. And I hate it how people would say, like, oh, I we had a blow job and it was way too rough, and I didn't really want it to be that way, but at the same time I didn't want to lose my job, hence I didn't want to say anything. I mean, if that's how you feel, then okay, it's bad and he shouldn't have done that. But at the same time, yeah, I don't feel like you have a right to really, go forward 10 years later. This is what we're talking about. We're talking about something that's happened maybe seven, it said between 2006 to 2003. So that's 17 to 10 years later. And I think if there really was a problem, you would have gone forward straight away. I know that there was one of them did go forward straight away, but didn't want to take it any further. I think she just wanted to put it down to a bad experience. I don't want to see him again. Let's just end this. You know, I feel like in sexual abuse cases, I'm sure they're shocked at first and they are embarrassed at first, but I feel like there has to be a cutoff point. There has to be a point where you say, I'm going to take this to court. I want him to be punished. And if you go a whole 17 years just thinking, I didn't like it, I think there's something wrong with him, the whole point of punishing someone is so that they change and they don't do it again. Now, if someone's raped you, then you make it clear, especially if they're famous, you make it clear that there's something wrong with them and they need to, behave, change their ways and stuff. And that's the reason why you go forward. You might not go forward straight away. I can imagine there being some embarrassment behind it and not wanting to show your face. So maybe a year, two, three. I feel like to if you're going to try and like completely slander someone and make up or say things like this, you have to do it within a time scale, because there would have been good things about someone and bad things about someone, and I'm sure loads of people have gone to a bar, had brought home someone to have sex with, and then sort of changed their mind, and then maybe it ended up having sex anyway. And I'm sure this is kind of something that happens a lot. And okay, he's Russell Brand is a famous person, hence is getting a lot more attention. But I just feel like is his behavior really like that bad for something to be ignored for 15 years and then to be blown up, and then to also have the producers admit and confess that they've spent years working on these people. How, in a way, it sounds like almost they're the groomers for pestering these people. Oh, you've got to come forward. Oh, you've got to say something. You've got to do this. Are you okay with this? And then they're talking about all the legal aspects of trying to get this in place and stuff. And it's just, it does feel like they, I feel like you can use him as an example for something that shouldn't happen. And I don't agree that people should be like that. But I've sat in a bar where there's like a sofa of stuff. I'm sitting next to a girl who I've mildly know through a group, through the climbing club group, and I was speaking to this one guy, said a few couple of things, and he just got out his dick and started wanking in front of me. I didn't like it. I didn't approve of it. If that guy would have been a superly famous person, maybe maybe the world would be interested, but because he's not, he's just a nobody. I don't think anyone would really care about who that guy would do it. And yeah, I feel like there is some sort of different standard. If someone is famous and a presenter, they it feels like you it's easy to pick on them and say, they have all this fame, let's just shame them, let's and I just, it's complicated because I don't agree that his behavior was appropriate or right, but I also don't agree that you should, if you want to make sexual allegations against someone, if you want someone to go to prison or face the consequences of something that they've done, you have to get in there quicker than 10 to 17 years. I feel like if I was to make a law, I would say when it comes to murder, okay, there's no, if you killed someone 30 years ago, 40 years ago, 5 years ago, it doesn't matter the time scale. If you killed someone, you've permanently ended their life. Hence you can go to prison at any point that you get that it's deemed to be proven that you have killed this person. But when it comes to sexual acts, such for if 10 years has passed, I really think that you can't take someone to court over a sexual act done 10 years ago. I mean, maybe they didn't want to go forwards because they didn't want their career to be damaged, and so they were younger, and now that they're older, they realize I don't care about my, like if I wanted to be famous and I thought and someone had raped me, I might not want to go forward because I don't want to be famous knowing that this is, that's what's happened. But at the same time, I feel like if 10 years have gone past and I realize I'm not going to achieve that, I realize I'm not going to be famous, I'm not going to have a good job, and then if you start thinking, okay, well, I'm going to take that situation that was horrible and I'm going to try and turn it into something to hopefully get something out of it. I mean, that's kind of how it feels to me. Like, like I don't agree that if you've been sexually abused by someone that you should wait over 10 years and then start talking about it. I think if you're happy to go 10 years without trying to gain justice for it, then I feel like that's a sign that maybe back then there was some good out of the relationship. There was something, I can imagine it would be nice to meet someone who has fame and on one hand you don't want to get on the wrong side of him because you're hoping that you can use him to get somewhere. And I think if someone, if you go through that and then you wait such a long time, it's almost like you could have waited. There's possibility that you could have waited so long because you were hoping that maybe he'll change his mind and he'll come round and he'll start dating you again. You don't know what's going on in a person's mind. And I these the women who make these claims and accusations seem to be hiding too much. And yeah, I don't. I think if a sexual abuse is over 10 years, then I think it should be waived because the question as to why someone has waited so long before making these accusations. And Russell Brand did have a big platform, and he was abusing people, he should have, it should have been known at the beginning, because then he would have been forced to change, forced to stop, forced to change his ways and be paid for it. But he's a different person now. It's a very he's still a mad, but I think he's more mad than he ever was. But and I think also with his bipolar as well, or the stare, he has that stare, that glazed look in his face that is very intense and not very good. But yeah, how media things want to cancel him stuff. Well, was he ever? Is he actually in the media? I don't even think he's in the media. I think he's just got a YouTube channel, and he looked like an absolute mess for such a long time. And I know he was always proud about his weird hair that looks like he's just got out of bed, or he's been lying in bed too much. But yeah, over 3 years ago, he started looking like some sort of homeless person, and so I don't really know what's going on with these stories, but he's an interesting thing. But he's an interesting person. But yeah, I agree that if a sexual claim is made over 10 years and you're trying to get justice for something done over 10 years ago, I feel like, if you build a house, if you build like a greenhouse in your garden or on your roof or something, on the flat roof, and people want you to remove it. I feel like if they don't say anything within 7 years, they've obviously not been bothered enough about that to make, to make, if to make an allegation. And likewise, if someone's going to make a sexual abuse against someone, if 10 years have passed, um, you've, if it's three years, 7 years have gone past, and then you spend like 3 years trying to get justice, I think that's normal, or not normal. That's not normal. That's not normal. That's justifiable. Maybe you've just taken a long time to process it, but for 10 years to go past, it's gone past the 10-year mark, and yeah, I feel like whatever he did or didn't, you know, I I I just I feel like I feel like I don't feel like they know that the victims, I don't feel like the victims know the full story, and maybe they were hoping to, maybe they liked something about him, his, maybe they too were different people, they too are different people to how they were 15 years ago. And so if they're claiming that he's not their type in any kind of way, well, you have to think, well, this was a long time ago, were you more his type? He's changed, you've changed, maybe you were more similar than you realized back then. And counseling can be really bad, because some people take counseling, and that they have counseling, and then the counselors just start bringing up all the negativity. So what was it like, how does it feel? And then you actually end up making a person feel worse than they originally felt. Whereas you can do counseling in the other way. Well, what are the positives? Did you think that you might get anything out of this relationship? Did you get anything? Did he buy you nice things? Did he take you to a nice like an expensive restaurant? What was your life like at the time? If your life, what were your other boyfriends like as well? I mean, some people go for a horrible boyfriend, but they do that because they look at their past boyfriends and think, well, he's much better than those ones. And if these women, I'm not talking about 16-year-old, but if the other ones, had bad relationships with other people, I feel like maybe what Russell Brand's, sexual acts are, it might not actually be that bad in comparison to other relationships that they had. But because Russell Brand is more famous and a well-known name, maybe they're using this opportunity to pick on that person, which is why it's bad to be famous. It's bad to be famous because if people start bringing up, um, you know, allegations against you, the world is going to take it far more seriously than that guy that was sitting next to me in the club started wanking. And also when I went to Jerusalem, I was crossing over. There was this little park where I thought Darla, my past life lived. There was like a little cave, and I was just doing a walk around that area, and then this boy who looked very poor, looked very young. I think he looked only about like 14, 15 or something. But yeah, he just stood at me, stared at me, and I was thinking, I don't know, he might like grab a bat and start hitting me or something. And then he just literally just pulled down his pants and started wanking in front of me, and it was just like, that is very weird. And then I just walked back. But if someone like that, or someone like in the club, just starts doing it, no one cares. But if it's a famous person, and suddenly someone does care. But you have to put things into a bigger perspective, which is that, how often do people give blowjobs to people and think that it's fine to shove a dick down their throat? I mean, how often and how common is that? Why should you attack Russell Brand? I know that these weren't really relationships that he's in, but in the workplace as well, you have to put things on a normal scale, and think how common is this. And maybe it's just England's not as bad as other places. I feel like I'm getting a wrong perspective on things, because I know that this stuff probably happens far more in other countries. But yeah, I don't want to think about it. That's just, I don't want to think about it.